live. Wow, never a dull day around here. The technological nightmare that it is. We are 9 minutes late, and you know how the boss is when we're late. Tommy McKay here with 3D Politics every Monday night from 7-ish live on Facebook. Once again, joining me, David Oldham from constitutionalgrounds.com. Go check out all the things constitutional at constitutionalgrounds.com with David Oldham. Exciting show tonight. We're going to talk about the election scam that is on. We're hoping to have Willie J. Montague in next week. He was scheduled for tonight, but was unable to join us. We're hoping to reschedule him for next week. We're going to talk about the national mask mandate that Joe Biden wants to inflict upon us. And at 7:30, Ken Reddick will join us to talk about city and etc. and all things pertinent. David Oldham, thanks for joining us. Thanks for sticking around with me while we struggle to get live. It's always an exciting thing around here. As I know,
we did start at 7. We did start at 7.
Sure. We're counting votes after 7.
We did.
It's true that. Fact is, there's a lot of buttons to press around here, but I pressed them. And so now here we go. The election is on us. You know, it's funny how they want to press all this business about how in the world could they scam an election. I will tell you this: they've actually advertised now for if you know any even a rumor of things that are improper with the election. I'll say even in Oklahoma, I let this slide. I didn't say anything about it. It's the 1st of October. I had some construction on a house. Over a deconstruction is what a demolition. They knocked over a garage. I complained about it because I had my roll off over there and people were trying to put stuff in it for me that weren't supposed to be there. But the guy that ran the little miniature bulldozer that knocked over the stuff told me he was doing a demolition at 71st and like Memorial or Sheridan, and they found a box of ballots in the trash can dumpster out there right here in Tulsa. So, I mean, it goes on apparently everywhere.
Well, yes, it does. And this is not anything new. I shared a response the other day, or a memory, a Facebook memory from 4 years ago where we had just been through more fraud and found fraud in Texas and Illinois and shared that. And I had shared in there a movie, a documentary called Hacking Democracy. And if you haven't seen it, it was produced back in 2006, and it discusses the very voting machines, the tabulators for these paper ballots, just like the ones we use here in Oklahoma, and shows how they can be hacked and they can tabulate the wrong results, as we see has happened in 48 counties in Michigan.
Right.
So, you know, and that's what said in 2006, they produced a documentary because it had already been happening before that.
Right.
And it all comes down to the people setting up the programming of these machines, and they were counting Trump votes for Biden. So it flipped by a big number, and we'll just have to see how everything plays out. But
real quickly, as a kind of looking into the future, as a quick aside here about this idea of technological voting over the internet, et cetera. They've been pushing for a while for the congressmen, senators, et cetera, to vote electronically. Are they doing that now, or do they have to be in person to vote?
Yes, to both questions. They have to be in person. They do it electronically. If anybody has a problem, they can call for the yays and the nays. Even here in Oklahoma, we have electronic voting from your desk. You hit the button, it
but
says what you vote.
That's not going through the internet, though, is it? That's just through the wires. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, that's just directly connected to the board.
In circuit, yeah.
Yeah, and you have the chance if it shows up wrong to note it, and then you can take a picture of the board.
Right.
So they can't fake it because everybody's watching. And this is the key, this is why they don't want court observers, or they don't want court poll watchers and the observers in these places. They want to do them in secret,
right?
Because they are doing things that are illegitimate. I mean, if you go back to 2000, I don't know if you've seen the video from that county in Pennsylvania where they were correcting bad ballots, where they were writing in new ones, and there were election workers doing it. And I wondered if it was some sort of a procedure that they were doing, because they were just doing it openly, like no big deal.
Right.
But that's like taking the ballots from Florida with the hanging chads. Now, for our younger listeners, a hanging chad was back in the day, you actually pulled the lever and punched your ballot. You slid your paper underneath, and then you punched through when you hit the button.
Sounds so aggressive.
And it punched your ballot. Yeah, I know. And then it used lights to figure out where your vote was. Well, the thing is, that would be like taking that hanging chad, creating a brand spanking new ballot, pulling the chad off or whatever, and fixing it so you could, denote what the ballot is supposed to read.
Right.
And that was so totally forbidden back then. And now in Pennsylvania, they're just writing new ones, like whatever. Right. And it's like, I just don't understand. I mean, maybe it's in the rules. I certainly don't understand it, because don't you dare touch my ballot.
Yeah, so, it's interesting. Yeah. I think that we've been saved multiple times just in this year by the founding fathers' wonderful federation of states concept, as opposed to a nation state. We have quirky laws that are sovereign for each state. And even though that does present problems, it may seem odd or even silly the way they do it in Pennsylvania to people in Oklahoma, but it is that quirkiness of the system that allows us to not just be tanked as a nation state. It's a great benefit. I want to touch a little story real quick. Biden wants to see masks mandated in all 50 states. Here's a story from CNN by Leah Asmelish and Nakia McNabb and Amanda Watts from today, November 9th. While health officials agree, the state and local governments have varied widely on the implementation of mask rules. Now, one of the things I want to touch on before we even start this thing is, just because health officials agree doesn't mean we run our politics that way. This is one of the things I've been harping on the show, is that we need to let political science run our politics and let the medical science run the medicine, because what the medical people will tell you is that the medical science changes all the time, and we can't have that in our politics. So just because health officials agree that face masks help prevent, I mean, before you even argue whether they do or not, so what if health officials agree? Now, Biden has released plans that his administration intends to implement in the beginning of his term, a national mask mandate, quote, by working with governors and mayors. Now, this is insidious. I want to ask you, so it says here, most states already have some type of mask mandate, but some have no statewide rule, either leaving it as recommendation or giving the authority to local officials. Isn't that wrong? I mean, we because they don't make a rule for it, this CNN piece is wrong. It's not left up to local officials. If it's not written, it's left up to who?
Well, it's left up to the individual. But yeah. the real thing is, again, we come back to what's the constitutional standard. The constitutional standard is that we are free until we've harmed somebody and somebody can prove it in court. We are free. So It doesn't matter. You can dictate to me all day long. I am going to ignore it. I just flat out ignore it. And if you hold a gun to my head, then I should have my recourse in court. And, and it's that simple.
I mean, if there is no statewide rule, I'm contending that this article is wrong in its conclusion. It's saying no statewide rule means it's either leaving it as a recommendation or giving the authority to local officials. It does not give the authority to local officials.
Correct.
Because if there's no rule.
No authority. Well, the real, here's the thing. There is no authority that local officials, state officials, or federal officials have for a mandate. None. Zero. Zippo. Nada. Does not exist. So anybody who is looking at these people and acting as though they are somehow sovereign to issue dictates to the rest of us plebes and subjects, no, I'm sorry, it just doesn't happen.
And the idea that if a statute does not exist, that leaves it to the local officials. No, if there is no statute, then we are free to do as we please based on the fact, was it the 10th Amendment or 9th Amendment or 10th or 9th Amendment, right?
Well, the 9th Amendment and the 5th.
I mean,
the 5th and the 14th. I mean, it just goes on.
So again, we've got these unelected bureaucrat health officials dictating to each of us how we must live, and of course, your regular person you deal with will say, well, they regulate automobiles. We've talked. You wear a seatbelt, blah blah blah. And it's like, look, I wasn't born with an automobile up under my ass. I was born with this beautiful face right here. So don't start dictating to me how I got to behave in my natural state. If I get into a vehicle, that's a whole nother issue.
Well, no, but their Tom and this gets back to whether something is a proper regulation or not. They are calling illegal regulation proper. And we have got to make sure that our listeners are.
Uh-oh, David's frozen up. It's government.
What's that?
You froze up. We've got to make sure our listeners understand
that you and I have the God-given right to drive a car, to go about maskless up until we have harmed somebody else. Then and only then, after due process of law, are we able to be deprived of some liberty. And then and a regulation like the rules of the road is only for mutual safety, but cannot prevent you or I or deprive us of our liberty in the process. And that's what all these improper regulations do. They say you can't unless you do this, that, or the other thing. It's not you break a rule if you don't drive on the right side of the road. But show me where they're doing something with masks that's actually for everybody's safety. No, it's just dictating to us, and it's supposedly for safety, but we disagree.
Right.
So find something else that's within the realm that still grants me my freedom to go maskless, and find a way to make it all work. It's really simple to do. But
so this piece goes on. This piece goes on here are the states with no statewide mask requirement. There's about 15 of them. Oklahoma is there. It says the city council in Oklahoma City voted special meeting July to approve emergency public safety ordinance requiring face coverings in indoor public places throughout Oklahoma City. Get this. Here is South Dakota. Governor Kristi Noem, a Republican, has taken a hands-off approach to COVID-19. In October, she wrote in an op-ed that the government should not mandate a mask requirement. As I've said before, quote, she said, if folks want to wear a mask, they should be free to do so. She wrote, similarly, those who don't want to wear a mask shouldn't be shamed into wearing one. Then they go on to damn her, saying South Dakota is second only to North Dakota in the number of coronavirus cases per 100,000 people. Now, in number of corona cases, you know how you increase the case number? Increase the testing. Case numbers mean nothing. It's absolutely ridiculous. Let's see if there's anything else I want to touch on. Yeah, the case numbers, and I got a Forbes article I want to touch on that shows the death rate is below 1% for anybody over 60. During the campaign, though, still on the CNN piece from today, Biden spoke of his plan to issue a nationwide mask mandate. It could be challenged in court. Biden said he would go to every governor and urge them to issue mask mandates. If they refuse, I'll go to the mayors and county executives and get local masking requirements in place nationwide. Here is a guy that's going to call, he's going to call Greg Robinson in 4 years and tell him that he wants the mask mandate in Tulsa all the way down to the county. Now, what is it? How is it that the federal executive can start tinkering around in private contracts within the state?
Well, what he's doing is he's going around everybody, and all he's doing is he's cajoling them and saying, hey, we want you to do this. He's not going to be using the force of government or anything like that. He's going to be doing pretty much like what's been going on. The biggest thing that Donald Trump did was he didn't just do like Kristi Noem in South Dakota and say, everybody get back to business and just ignore it. And acknowledge it. It's there. Take heed, and that's not going to happen. Biden's feeling his oats. He thinks he can take it, and so he's gonna come out, and he's gonna come out as the dictator he always has wanted to be.
Right.
And so he's gonna get people to back him up on it because he knows that he doesn't have any authority to do this on his own. Absolutely not there. 10th Amendment prevents him. So he's got to get somebody to do it. So he's going to have to go to all the socialist mayors.
Right. Stay tuned, everybody. We've got Ken Reddick coming up at the bottom of an hour to kill the rest of this story. It also concludes that wearing a face mask in public corresponds to the most effective means to prevent interhuman transmission. Now, corresponds is a pretty high dollar word, but that doesn't mean it correlates. It doesn't mean it's causation. The causation and correlation are two different things. Just because something corresponds doesn't mean it's correlated. And of course, the morons out there will say, oh, sure, Tom, just ignore the virus. Like, nobody's saying walk around and be unclean. At the same time, if we'll very quickly, before we bring Ken Reddick in, here we are from Forbes magazine. And if you'll see right here, am I sharing yet? I hope.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so this is from Forbes magazine's what is the death rate for COVID-19? This Bruce Y. Lee, I believe this was in September of this year. Now you go down here and you'll find out the IFR, which is the infection fatality rate. And that's when you actually die from the infection. Right here, you can see the calculated infection fatality rate increased with age, but it was 0.01%, less than 1% between the age of 12 to 40 years old, 0.12% for those 40 to 59 years old. You only get to the 1% mark and plus for 60 years and older. And so
that's of the people actually infected.
Right. And so they're running around.
1% of the people who actually catch it had a fatality, and of children, it was 1/100th of 1%. That means 1 in 10,000.
They want to lock down the entire city and tell me I'm running rampant, killing everybody when you don't have any bodies, man. Not to the point that you're saying. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're just now joining us. We are here once again on a Monday night, 7:30 coming up. Is Ken Reddick, former mayoral candidate here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, just this last go-round. Defeated, unfortunately, by G.T. Bynum, who we all know the G stands for Greg Robinson. I'm just expecting him to be our next baton carrier. So let's see what we got here. I see Ken Reddick is in the waiting room. Let's bring him in. There he is. He's connecting to audio. There's a man on the roll right there. Ken Reddick. All right, you look like something out of the movies. Let's hear you talk.
Hey, how are you guys?
There you go. He's live. That's right. Hey, you look like something out of the Bourne Identity, like you're on the run out there.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Oh, we're doing well.
Good.
Hey, we had another, we forgot to talk about this at the top of the hour. There was another like support the president rally that happened the other evening, Sunday.
Yep.
I didn't make it, but I saw some business there. Ken, I think you were there. Were you not? I think I saw a feed
I
from
went.
you.
Yep.
How was that experience for you, Ken?
It was really good. We had a lot of support, lively crew, and not as big as the one that happened at La Fortune, but still a lot of good support.
Right. Well, it's a pretty good a pretty good turnout. Of course, you expect that in Oklahoma. But how have things been going since the mayor's race, and what have you been up to pressing down the road in politics here?
So since the mayor's race, I took a little bit of a break. I came back, started building the website, building the business up, and hired a few people, bought a few trucks. Kind of participated as much as possible with local politics, a couple city council races, and then as much as I could do for Trump's race and other local races, Hearn and Inhofe. But outside of that, it's been going pretty good.
So what about the future of the GOP here in Tulsa County and in the city of Tulsa? What are your thoughts about how to improve the GOP and Republican? I know we did well. We're always red, et cetera. But, there's a lot of, there's a lot of people in this state that are blue. So it seems like we need to be more on the offensive. Personally, I'm hoping you or anyone else will begin their campaign starting now for Tulsa mayor, because there's just literally no way somebody's going to be able to start up in 2 years when Bynum is already working with Greg Robinson. So, I can't see anything other than a baton handoff in 4 years unless somebody gets on it right now. What are your thoughts about the mayor's race in 4 years and the GOP here in Tulsa?
Well, as a county, I think we're doing pretty good. As a city, we're doing pretty poor. But that comes from a lack of county support, county level support, with the GOP party. But here in the state, that being said, we need to start moving. We had 3 good conservatives that were running for city council, and all 3 went down on November 3rd. So that was a sign. If you speak with some of them, they'll have a lot of the same thing to say, a lot of common things to say, but a lot of it has to do with lack of support, and the local Tulsa County GOP will tell you, it's a nonpartisan race. They have to stay out of it. I'll be the first to tell you, the local county GOP heads do not stay out of nonpartisan races. I don't want to call any names, but they had a lot of help. Bynum had a lot of help from that office. They were making a lot of personal phone calls. They held Tulsa County Election Board positions, and it was really, for a couple guys that'll say they have to stay out of the race, and they have to stay pretty non-biased behind the scenes, private messaging and everything like that, to actual, conversations with big support groups and big PACs. They were really working hard. So I wish they would have worked that hard for those 3 city council candidates.
Oldham, what do you got for us?
Well, I have stayed out of a lot of that stuff, so I'm unaware of all that was going on. I would like to see our races get back to some partisanship, because
me too.
This whole, because then we can sell based on brand, rather than
Platforms,
everybody just coming in and being some weekly weakling kind of what's everybody want. The other thing is, I'm hoping that people will start to begin to talk about that we need to dismantle all the socialist programs that are costing us so much money. And as Tom is pointing out, raising our taxes again, our sales tax.
Oh, this summer, the taxes in Tulsa are going up 26%.
And all for socialist programs, 100%. 100%. Because without the socialist programs, we can easily fund the police and fire and, and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back to these candidates. Go ahead, Oldham.
Yeah. No. That was pretty much it. I just hope that we even with nonpartisan, that we start selling that and we can start taking that to the citizens, because I think when people start hearing it, they may start glomming on. Too many people are sucking at the teat right at the moment.
So I want to thank Blake Barber for joining us again. And he was making a comment about these city council candidates suggesting ideas are paramount. I say content is king, and maybe the candidates were lacking. I know they went out of their way. I mean, they're like trying to find a stain on Justin Van Kirk's shirt just to say anything they could bad. I mean, they're literally going down to the lowest levels of government to do the tiniest little smear campaigns. It's so what do you think about the ideas? I mean, Justin Van Kirk was my candidate. I wanted him to be my city councilor here in my district. But I mean, it wasn't like he was catching fire with ideas or anything. He just seemed like a solid guy, But so tell me about the ideas.
I mean, he seemed like a candidate you could really rely on. He had a lot of small business experience. You knew he was going to be reliable at such a young age. He's already built up quite the business. He's got a great relationship. So he was going to be a good stand-up guy. And that's really what you want. That's really what you want. But I tell you, if Tulsa keeps going in this direction, they're making Terry Simonson's idea of dissolving all local municipalities and just going to a county commissioner system a lot more appealing.
Well, how's that work? I haven't heard the ins. What's the suggestion there? I don't know that one.
Terry Simonson's going around the state, I gather, pitching the idea that we should just have county-run governments, add a couple county commissioners, maybe 5 total, just adding 2 more, and dissolving all local politics, and not having such separate institutions that overlap each other, like the county parks department and the city of Tulsa parks department.
Sounds like a concentration of power rather than a separation of power. What do you think, David Oldham?
Yeah, I think I understand what Terry's trying to do, because he's trying to lessen the amount of government. The
same thing he was doing when
what's that?
Same thing he was trying to do when he first took office with Bartlett. Streamline the system. Right. They ran an amazing audit, and I think the 1,200 recommendations from that auditor that him and Bartlett received, I think they implemented at least 75% of those recommendations, and they had huge cuts. The FOP hated them for it, but they had huge cuts, and they did the job.
Well, the biggest problem that I have with the suggestion is like so many governmental suggestions, is it's the wrong solution for an obvious problem. And it misidentifies the problem. The problem is socialism. The problem is that we have way too much spending on things that is none of government's business. And therefore trying to shrink the size of government isn't going to ultimately shrink the outgo of money and the theft from you and me. And so we've got to get to that spending problem. And with that, we don't need the bureaucracy, and the whole thing will solve itself. So, it's never going to work, because we're not shrinking the actual need for a bureaucracy to give out all this socialist money.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but that's the problem. But I do see that he wants to get there. He's just going about it all the wrong way. And that's been Terry for years and years and years and years, because he's all pro, establishment kind of governance.
To me, it sounds like a big government. Hey, if you're just joining us, we've got Ken Reddick, former mayoral candidate from Tulsa, on with us. And I really want to get into also David Oldham, constitutionalgrounds.com. I'm your fine host your verbal Viking, Tommy McKay, with 3D Politics every Monday night. And of course, Blake Barber's out there backing us up, out there in the field, making sure we're staying on task. And I got to say, I know Blake will be with me on this one. We talk a lot about socialism, capitalism, et cetera, and we know what we like and we don't know what we don't like. But Ken, you were in the fight. You were in the fight with the running for mayor just a few weeks back. I did the same thing you did 4 years ago. And I saw the baton to the mayor's office handed from Uncle Dewey to nephew GT, and the G stands for Greg Robinson. And so how we can talk about these things, who's going to run in 4 years? Who are you going to go?
Oh yeah. We'll
You're going to run again?
Yeah, we came out of nowhere. We had huge support. We built a great network. If we start where we left off here, sky's the limit. So, it'll be wide open. If you take GT at his word, he says he's got this is his last term. Who knows what he's got next? Maybe he gets back to lobbying. But yeah, in 4 years, it'd probably be me versus Gregory Robinson.
Yeah. So now so that answers one question, which means I got to hurry up and get a GoFundMe started. I don't know how you handle that with the Ethics Commission, but we'll start raising some money.
Quarterly.
Okay. So well, I need to figure out how to get you started a GoFundMe so we can start building towards the discussion. I have nothing personal against Greg Robinson. He's a fine man. He's
right.
Clearly got some great skill in what he's doing. However, his whole attitude is socialism. He has suggested we live in a racist country, and I don't agree with that. There's a lot of ways that when we interviewed him on the show, we skipped the idea of going too deep into the differences I have with his concepts of socialism and how it works. I hope to have him back on the show again, but hopefully we can have you and he discuss these issues of socialism versus capitalism, because David Oldham is right. This socialism is what's killing us. The fact that government supposedly is the only entity that's big enough to take care of something like a pandemic. And when we get a pandemic, government doesn't control or handle anything. No. They just tell us, hey, don't use the hospital you paid for. Right. It's like, man, all they do is tell us, hey, you guys shut up and sit down. They don't handle anything. So we need to, if you're running, if you're going to, go ahead and put the stake in the ground now, we'll just count on having you back on a regular basis between now and 4 years to talk about updating your deal, because we got to get this fixed. And at the very least, we have to have an honest discussion between a capitalist and a socialist that's running for mayor, because the socialism is killing us. Oldham, I've been going. What do you got for me?
No, that's awesome. I mean, because that's exactly what we've got to do. And I've been wanting to have people have this discussion for 10 years since I moved into town. And it's great that it's starting to come. We're getting pushed to the point that we're left no other choice. But better late than never. We can always turn it around. The big thing that I think, and I saw this in the debate between Kojo and I can't remember his last name, Kojo and Kevin Hurd, the week before the election. And Kojo pointed out that there are three main things that the federal government spends money on. And it was Social Security and Medicare and the military. And I went up to him afterwards and I said, only one of those three things, though, is lawful and the other two are socialist. Do you know which one? And he would not answer. He would not answer which one was lawful and which two are socialist. And he wanted to save them all and bring down the only law and bring down the lawful one. And so, and he disagreed with my choice to call him a socialist. He also did not want to address the fact that he had youngsters there with him and that he wanted to pile more debt for all these social programs on them. Right. And I think it's time we start talking about the fact that we're living high on the hog. If we're living on the graces of our children, even our children yet unborn. I mean, how unconscionable and immoral is that?
Right.
You know, to enslave
the
them.
burden that we're loading them with is unprecedented.
Yeah, it's one thing to hook,
and something they frankly don't have to pay. Because you and I shouldn't be paying for our grandfather's, you know, choices.
Right.
We didn't have any say in that. No, we don't have to do that.
You know, it's one thing to hook your cart up to a horse that can gallop, but what we know with the American economy is that the officials will just flick the switch and turn it off if they so choose. I've heard them go, "Oh, COVID did this and COVID did that." No, you officials just flicked the switch and a bunch of sheep just quit doing their stuff. That was probably the scariest thing to me, is how many sheep are out there. I had no idea. I was, standing alone. I mean, it's pretty bad out there.
Yeah.
Well, and I knew it was bad, but I got a real wake up call, because it was like, oh no, it's really worse than I imagined. And I know better.
Yeah.
But, and I've known better for 20 years, but still it was freakish when you actually saw it happen.
What we're up against, I don't go trolling for trouble, but if it jumps out at me on the Facebook page, sometimes I'll respond. And you're up against these people who are 30 something, and they'll post a picture from circa 1950 something with teenagers screaming at blacks and then say, "Boy, that sure explains a lot." And I'm like, your presumption, I said, explains nothing. Please, professor, explain it. Oh, of course, you can't get an explanation from these people. And then the gal posts the thing. It's a song parody from it's a "Be My Guest" is now "Wear a Mask" from Beauty and the Beast, and she thinks it's just the funniest thing and the cutest thing. And I'm like, and I showed her that Forbes thing, and I'm like, less than 1%. And of course, she's set it up to where if I respond to her, the only way I can is to follow whatever her stupid thing is. I remember her as like a tiny child when she was born, and so I think of her that way. But now I realize she's 40 and she has a child that she's teaching this crap to. So it's like, this is scary. We've got 30 and 40-year-olds who have no critical thinking skills whatsoever. So the question for you, Ken, from the peanut gallery out there: how can the GOP, how can the Republicans evolve in the future, or do they need to evolve more? What's the future for the GOP?
It's bleak if we can have a record turnout and still lose. I mean, I think we need to remove the stigma of mail-in voting and not voting in person. We've got to keep up with the current culture, and culture is, it is what it is. I mean, we saw what's happening. If nothing changes and all the challenges and all the recounts are still in Biden's favor, then the future of the GOP is bleak, because they have found a way to participate at record levels with no energy. It's unmeasurable. So that being said, locally, we need to start vetting candidates and searching and building them up, and quit having these runoffs. You see, if we would have had the same conservative voter turnout in District 7, we would have put Lori out of a job on August 25th. That's because we're challenging each other. When I ran for city council in 2018, there were 7 candidates. There were 2 registered Democrats and then 5 registered Republicans, and we all ran against each other. And Lori Decker Wright won first in 2018 with 27% of the vote. So you figure if there would have been that much conservative turnout, for that election, it was a winner take all. Had we had one candidate, like they always do, they seem to always put up one candidate, and it was Lori Decker that year. And this year, we split the vote. She had 45% of the vote, and 55% voted for Van Kirk and Ferguson. So, we need to learn to stand behind a single candidate a little bit better.
the Socialist Democrats are not deciding any arguments about policy or anything. They always know what they're doing. It's socialism first. It's big government. It's take over the individual. It's group rights. Nothing to do with individual rights. There's never a question. They don't ever have to get people together. What do you think is important? They already know what their little game is. And so when the Republicans get together, this is one of the problems I ran into when I ran for mayor. It was a full 10 days before I was even contacted by anybody from the GOP after I filed. 10 days later, and then finally I got an auto response. Okay, the thing I heard first was Pat Campbell talking to me over the radio without mentioning me my name, saying you can't just file. Well, hell yeah, you can. I did just file. If I was running the GOP and some moron like me came out of nowhere ready to fight, I'd be calling him up. Hey, where'd you come from? Let's get you and recruited, fella. But no, the problem with the GOP around here is it's a clique like high school. They don't really want any new members. They don't really want any new ideas. Did I expect to win the election the first time I ran? Hell no. Okay, but I did expect to have some of my ideas put out there for discussion. That's what the primary is for, is to discuss these ideas. Then you get the person who can really win on the ticket and get behind them, but you've at least discussed these new ideas that I have. But my new ideas never got discussed because I was panned by the Republican conservative media because, according to Pat Campbell, I had an attitude. Well, congratulations. I think we need a whole hell of a lot more attitude around here, Mr. Pat Campbell. So I'm sorry. I don't expect to be invited to his show, but anyway, I'm just telling you, I feel for you, Ken Reddick, for putting your neck on the line, putting all your ethics violations potentially out there. I mean, they can make up crap anytime they want to try to bring you down. And so the fact that you stuck your neck out there and you're not getting the support from the GOP, that's a real thing. I felt it myself.
Right. Yeah.
Let me just also give a little lesson as to how some of this comes down. Oftentimes when you've got leaders, the county chairman and people who are in these positions, many of these people, not everybody, but many of these people take a look and make a subjective opinion or a judgment from their own opinions of whether or not somebody has a chance. And then they throw their weight behind somebody who might have it, who they think has a chance. Now, our current chairman has been proven wrong on a couple of occasions. And Cody Rogers was one prime example where our chairman had thrown his weight behind another candidate who Rogers beat in the primary, thought Rogers didn't have what it took to take it, and he got 66% of the vote. So or more. And so in the general, that is. And so you have this happen, and it seems establishment, it's just one guy, or
most of the time
they kind of run and say this is kind of how it's going to go. They're the one doing the most work. Others are just volunteers, and how much help you get from that one guy and whether or not they're doing, everything, what they do, with text messaging and how they, wield their power or their influence more. Is interesting. But so it comes down to this purely subjective thing in one guy's mind. And that is, we've got to work on all these people that we elect into these positions. Right. Number one, they've got to be willing to work, and Bob Jack has proven he's willing to work, but we've got to get them working for, and especially in the primaries, for all the candidates, let it hash out in the primaries, and then get behind everybody in the general.
So to try to, I want to try to feed the need of Blake out there and those that want answers. So just because a guy is willing to be there and work we all know that a person that shows up on the first day as a rookie has a lot of fight and a lot of fire. Employees, if you've ever hired, you know, the first month, boy, they just really kick it. Okay. And so after you've been in this position for year after year after year, and you get older and you get grandkids and you get busy and your knee hurts and stuff goes on, you start to do things by coasting downhill. You send out the same amount of emails to the same people you always send it to. And there's no recruiting any fresh blood. Nobody's looking for fighters. Nobody's looking for people that want to get in there and make it work. I mean, when I ran, people said, well, you've never run for office before. How do you think you can be mayor? Because the first thing of mayor is spokesperson. At least I could speak. And Dewey Bartlett have a 27%. I averaged his how often he said and it was 27% of the time. So we have to have people who are not just in it because they've been in it. We need new blood. We need people that want to fight for the right thing, private property ownership, and the rest. Say, if you're just joining us, we've got just about 4 or 5 minutes left with Ken Reddick. To me, I think it's news. He is former mayoral candidate here in Tulsa, but he has stated tonight he's running again. And on my money, it's going to be Ken Reddick against Greg Robinson. That's what the G in GT stands for. Ken Reddick, before we get out of here, I want to thank you once again.
Thank you.
Coming in here, we got about 4 or 5 minutes. This is Tommy McKay with 3D Politics every Monday night. Blake Barber's out there, as always. And I've got David Oldham with me, constitutionalgrounds.com, my fine co-host, everything you needed to know Constitution-wise at constitutiongrounds.com with David Oldham. So finalizing this thing, one of the things I learned about the way that back to this federal mandate on the mask, and people say, oh, he doesn't have the right. So what I learned about the way it works with the federal government, when the federal government says, and Biden has said he can make a federal mandate in all federal buildings and any federal land. And then what you find out is that any company who does contracting with the government is also under the same pressure. Before Trump did the executive order to stop the the diversity training, there was diversity training that was forced on everybody, and you had to go through and learn, where you fit in the social fabric. And that ended when Trump gave the executive order. And so that affected my life, because at first my wife was subjected to having to go through the ridiculous training, and then she wasn't. And I asked her, I said, but you don't work for the government. How come they can force? Oh, well, her company has a contract. So a lot of people think, well, the Biden can't do anything. He doesn't run anything. Well, if your company does business with the federal government, you're wearing a mask, honey.
Yeah.
That's all there is to
comply.
it. That's right.
Well, the only thing is, and we've got to get this to our heads. The federal government cannot force you to give up your rights in order to do business with them. It's absolutely forbidden.
You got to take them to court and show damages, though. You're not gonna win in a philosophy argument. You're gonna have to show damages and take them to court.
Well,
it'll cost you more to do that.
Again, the deprivation, they cannot deprive you of your liberty in order to get the contract. And that's the key thing, because that is effectively a bill of attainder. It's like, you don't want it, and literally every contractor should go through that, and should just quit their federal contracting business, and that would solve that. Just go on strike. But the other thing is that you are being deprived. When you're deprived of your liberty, that is a harm, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. And that should be all that's necessary in court. Just show that point alone. That should be it. And you should negate that point in the contract. So Biden shouldn't have the powers he has, but the courts are giving it to him.
Yeah.
Well, we have this. This is one of the things I thought we were going to roll out of here. This is the deal that I discussed with GT Robinson, was that I was saying this arbitrary enforcement of law is the problem here. We've got all these laws, and sometimes they enforce them, sometimes they don't. Like, for instance, the Black Lives Matter mural. And then Greg Robinson said, oh, well, no, sometimes there's some rules you got to break for social reasons. And I said, you mean like the mask mandate? Oh, no, that mask mandate, that's the rule that you've got to stick with. So even Greg Robinson is wishy-washy and inconsistent on his attitude about how to enforce the law. Some laws he'll want to break, and it's okay. But the mask mandate, oh my, that's a law you can't break. David Oldham.
Well, he is correct that there is a place for civil disobedience, and that is every unconstitutional law. The problem is he wants to break the law when it's inappropriate to break the law, and not disobey just the unconstitutional ones. So that's the problem. Is he's got it all wrong what you can use civil disobedience for. And that's, you can't block the freeway and block innocent people from getting through just because you don't like something. And
you're right. Can't interfere with someone else's. No, you're right. Your rights can't interfere with someone else's. Yeah.
And my charity stops where your entitlement starts too.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Or your entitlement stops at your pocketbook.
Yeah, and you know how clever the communists and Marxists have been doing this takeover cities and countries for about 100 years. The Americans are just now surprised at all this bull crap. They can't believe it. You mean the news is lying to us? Yeah, they've only been doing this in the Baltic states 100 years ago. And so what we're seeing how clever they are is they went ahead and occupied our streets with their warriors and made us come out publicly against violence in the streets. And then they throw this mask thing on us, knowing we're going to get violent in the streets.
Right.
I mean, they're way, way, way ahead of us. And that's why I'm glad to have Ken Reddick saying right now he's going to try to protect Tulsa from the onslaught of socialism. I'm going to be right there behind you, Ken. Anything else before we get out of here? Ken?
No, support the states that are, doing recounts, and support Trump whatever way you can. The fight hasn't stopped. The delegates have not voted. It's not over. It's going to be a recount. Everything needs to be challenged. Push for transparency and push for equal rights for all voters.
Ken Reddick, Tulsa mayoral candidate for 2024 coming up. We appreciate you being on the show, and I'm going to be right there. We're going to have you back on a regular basis. We'll work that out coming up. I'm going to send you away for now. Ken Reddick, thanks again for being on the show.
Appreciate you guys. Have a good day. Hey, congrats.
I just, dang it. Sorry, that was Zoom for you.
One of the things that I didn't get in, but I want to point out is both Ken and Justin Van Kirk, and I believe the other guys as well, did incredibly well in their individual races.
Right.
And especially the new guys for being brand new. Now, Cass Failer for standing for some of the things that he stood for. Unfortunately, it's like standing against socialism when everybody wants, to increase the socialist teachers' pay. Right. When that happens, you're just in an awful position, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
But the new guys did fabulously well. They're well situated to come back in a couple years and do this all over again and actually win races because they've been through it. They know what they're doing now. And like I said, they did incredibly well, and they're looking forward to running.
Right, and name recognition is critical, and so this is what I was realizing with this last mayor's race is that, especially with our incumbent embracing his opponent from the left side, and I mean, if somebody waits. And if somebody doesn't start now, there's going to be no name recognition, no momentum, because they're already working it right now. So thank God for Ken Reddick. We got to get him. Also, he just contacted me. Congratulations to David on your marriage is what he was telling you. Congratulations, David Oldham and Lori for your run there. He was trying to congratulate you.
And I would throw it I would say thank you in the comments, but remember, I am disallowed from complex entities interactions for 60 days. So I do not get to comment on my own page, this page, any of the pages or groups that I'm an admin on. I can't participate, post, or anything. I can post on my own constitutional grounds page, but I can't comment on the post afterwards. So people write nasty things, I can't say anything about.
So these are rules imposed by Facebook or by your new wife? That's funny.
No,
that's just a joke.
It's how did I go away?
I don't know. Did you click something? I didn't do it. I promise. Oh, your wife did it. There you are. Okay, there you are. No, it's just a joke. But what happened was that on October 29th, I just tried to post and I wasn't able to. There was no message sent, nothing in my inbox, nothing, no explanation, no way to challenge it. Nobody. I've made all sent all the messages I'm supposed to send. Right.
Nobody is doing it, but I was not alone. I know of Women for Trump, New Jersey was taken down. The group, 30,000 people taken down, just wiped off the map. A 40,000 member group was just taken down, and numerous of my friends with similar views and teaching the Constitution and so forth, just taken down just before the election.
Right. So, YouTube wouldn't let me share to Facebook. I was going to share one of our videos to my Facebook page, and it says, "Oh gosh, you can't do that," Okay, And what I found amazing is that the enemies of the left are becoming smaller and smaller. They're all the way down to a tiny little guy like me. I really have no, I've got no clout. I'm just a guy that just talks about what I think is right. And they are bargaining against me on Facebook. They're monitoring my Twitter now and messing with that. And you'll also know on Twitter, you see a thing on Twitter and it shows you the replies, and they're all positive in favor of whatever the moronic thing is. And if it says show the other replies, that's where all the dirty stuff is, where people are like, take your mask mandate and shove it. So Twitter is clicking it around. KTUL is just horribly slanted. The rest of them are. But we've got to break out of the GOP high school clique attitude, start getting some ideas in here. Blake Barber's got 1,000 ideas a minute coming at me. I can't even keep up with them. So we'll plan in the future to add these ideas to a list. We'll plan to get Ken Reddick in here on a regular basis and start building some funds and some momentum for his run against socialism in Tulsa in the future. But anything else, David, before we get out of here?
Just remember, all politics is local. Start with your own family, your own network, your friends, neighbors, coworkers, and work out from there. But it's amazing the number of people, once you start doing that, the number of people who will start calling you for, the answers to all the questions they don't know.
Right.
Lori and I are inundated at times with questions. It's like, you guys seem to know everything. What's going on with this, blah, blah, blah. And we're often, taken up, especially around election time, with answering those kinds of responses. That is the biggest help you can do.
Right. And that's been one of the big moments of cheering me up, is to realize that GT Bynum has a lot more to do with my life than Biden or Trump will ever do. It's all local.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Tommy McKay with 3D Politics. I want to thank everybody who's been out there this evening watching and participating. Thank you, Ken Reddick, for being on the show. We hope to have him back again, hopefully next week. Willie J. Montague from Florida. And David Oldham, constitutionalgrounds.com. As always, thanks for being here. I'm going to send you out. There goes David Oldham. Thanks for being on the show. And I am going to take myself out. We will see you guys next week on 3D Politics Live.